Welcome back to another episode of Modular Wild. I am Raul. This time we're going to be going a little bit further with the Megawave. If you're with us in the last video on the Megawave, we kind of looked at some audio rate signals being fed through bank number 7, which is the binary rate multiplier. That's supposed to help you create harsh audio sweeps. Also, it's supposed to be intended for drum trigger patterns, which is what we're actually going to be listening to it do in this video. So without further ado, let's just kind of jump right in and hear what it sounds like. Now we know, if you've been watching any of the previous videos, that we're going to need a saw wave, so that's where we're going to start. I'm just going to take this out, and I do have it set kind of to mid-range frequency, maybe mid-low, so I'm going to patch that in over here. And we're not going to go through each and every single one of these patches over here in bank 7. We're just going to get a general idea as we go into our demo. So let me take the output and then feed it over to our scope so we can kind of get a look at how the output is going to progress. So let's go ahead and patch it in, and there you can see some activity over at the scope. Now I'm going to bring it all the way down to 0 so you can kind of see what's happening over there. And you can see that there's kind of little slight sort of jumps in the waveform right there. Okay. Now, as I move it up over here, like I'm going to go to maybe patch number, 4. You can kind of see what's happening over there. See, now there's more little pops over there. So now if I move it up, let's go up to about, 9. You can kind of see what's happening over there. Now I have a few more. And if I go all the way up to 15, which is the top one, then you can kind of see that they're very, very compressed over there. So we're going to be using these for drum triggers and getting a listen to what this actually sounds like and how you can kind of integrate it or use it as a filling element or transitional element in your music or anything else. But for that, we're going to need some percussion. So if you look over in a different section of our modular, you should see a few percussion sounds that I've kind of set up. Just to kind of go through them, I already have the outputs of these sort of patched up just to save time. I have the output of the BD808 by Tip Top Audio. I have the DSM drum module by Synths, and then we're going to be using the Hats 808 by Tip Top as well, and then the snare drum 808 as well. So what I thought we would do is just kind of feed the same trigger that we see at our scope out to each one of these drums and just take a listen to what's actually happening over there. So I'm going to take one of my triggers out. You're not going to see this off camera, but you will start to hear it. So I'm going to start with patching into this module. So there we go. And we don't see anything, but I have to actually bring up my sensitivity. So that's our sound that we see over at the scope. And if I bring it up on the Megawave into a higher patch number, you can kind of hear how the sound is changing. Going all the way up to 11. Now I'm on 13. Okay, let me bring it back down. Let me patch a few more sounds here. So I'm going to take another trigger. Again, this part you're not seeing. But let me go ahead and patch it into our hi-hat. And then let me take another trigger and patch it in just to our BD808 as well. And hopefully you can see these. I don't want to get too close in your face. So BD808. There we go. And then I have my mix controls over here on the side, so I can bring these down. Kind of get a nice balance just for our working here. Okay. I'm going to save the snare drum for a little bit later. But now let's just kind of progress through these different sounds over here. So that's number 3 right there on the Megawave. If I bring it up, number 4, here we are on number 6, and number 9. So I mean, you could do this in a manual sort of setting, if you're playing along with your band or something like that. Bring it up, bring it down. can just kind of manually adjust it if you wanted to. Or you could do something a little more fun, like for example, using a modulation source like the anti-oscillator we have over here. So let's bring this into low frequency mode over here. And I think that should be somewhere in the low frequency. And then we're just going to patch a modulation signal into the wave in to kind of move it through some of the different patches there. So we're patching in. There we go. So now we got a little bit of variety. At this point, I'm actually going to go over and I'm going to modify my DSM just a little bit. So let me bring up the pitch a little bit. Bring up the decay a little bit. I'm going to add a little noise too. And you can see the activity over here. It's just moving up and down. So let me move this to a different patch. So you get a nice little variety, a little bursts happening, if you choose to do something like that. You could also use a different type of modulation source. For example, we have the noise ring, kind of off camera over here. So I'm going to actually take this cable and let's try to take the output from there. Actually, let's do something else because this is off camera and I want you to actually see what this is doing. So let's go up to the top section and let's just take the CV output from our sequencer. And let me make sure I'm all the way in there. And with this sequencer, it's actually just playing different notes there. So this gives a slightly different effect over at our Megawave. So you can see that it's kind of sort of triggering some of the same numbers. Let me bring this all the way up. So there we have 7, 8, 10, 7, 8, 10, 7, 8, 10, 8, 11, 12. And then of course I can change my bass patch if I wanted to. This is for something a little more controlled if you wanted. But of course you always have the option to go in and kind of adjust it yourself. So you can make some kind of interesting drum patterns. Okay, so we're back to our kind of basic fundamental sound there. And then the last thing you can kind of do to kind of, you know, shake up your triggers a little bit. So I was having some fun with this prior to the beginning of this demo. Let's take another copy of our triggers, and this is another one of those things you're not going to see, but take my word for it. I'm taking a multiple of what we see over at the scope, and I'm going to patch it this time up into our top section next to our sequencer into this module right here. This is by Steady State Fate. This is a gate delay. So basically it's taking that trigger that we're getting from the Megawave, and we're actually going to delay it a little bit to create yet another gate. So I'm going to take this gate and I'm going to patch it into our snare drum, and we'll see how that sounds. Now I have my delay set all the way to the bottom, so initially this will just trigger at the exact same time. So here we go. There we go. So we have a nice little drum pattern going. And as I move it, you can play your own little drum section if you want. But now if I wanted to displace the snare drum occurring, I could use my gate delay. So I could just drag it a little bit, delay it a little bit so it happens a little later. Create myself a nice little drum sound. Like that, you get a nice little drum pattern. So lots of fun. Now I'm going to keep this demo kind of short and quit while I'm ahead. But I just wanted to do kind of a just basic demo on one way that you can kind of integrate this into your modular setup and use Bank 7 as it's recommended within the Miniwave manual for creating some drum trigger patterns. And lots of different possibilities. I mean, I only used one of the channels of this gate delay. This is actually a 4-fold gate delay, so I could have probably done a little bit more with that. But I thought this was kind of just a little simple demo that we could do and get the idea as to what can be accomplished with this guy over here, the Megawave. So I do want to thank you for watching. Eventually down the road we will get to bank 8, which is going to be a fairly interesting bank if you haven't looked ahead. That's actually going to be the bank that contains a few samples from the Votrax SCO1 voter chip. I'm going off the Miniwave manual. Hopefully the Megawave has the same bank. If not, I'll make a correction, and we're going to bank in anyway. So thanks again for watching, and see you next time.